Hey, how's everybody doing? Hello, hello, hello. Hi, Libby. Hi in the bushes. Hi, Lioness. Good morning, afternoon. I guess it's like 4 o'clock. How are you guys? Hi, Catherine. Hi, Roberta. Hi, Seal. Good to see you. Hi, Dina. Yeah, hi to everyone in the chat. Guys, this is so exciting. I told you guys 2024 is the year of justice. We are seeing it in case after case that has gone a long time. God, I can't even tell you how excited I am that this family is finally getting justice. So let me pull this up because I know you guys are all just as excited as I am. For those of you guys, put a 1 in the chat if you guys remember who Dennis Boo Vaughn Jr. is. Put a 1 in the chat if you remember. Put a 1 in the chat. So let me show you guys this article. So we talked about Dennis. I'm just going to call him Boo. I'm just going to call him Boo. We talked about Boo during the Harmony Montgomery case while we were covering her trial. We looked into the details surrounding Boo Vaughn as well, because unfortunately he had lost his life right around the same time that Harmony had lost her life to Adam Montgomery. He had lost his life to his grandma after, gosh, I can't even tell you guys how many times that they were contacted to try to save this child. I mean, we are talking months and months and months of his mom begging and pleading and just trying to get him taken out of his monster grandma's care and trying to get him put into a situation where he could be safe and loved and happy. She had been abused inside of his her mom's care whenever she was younger. She didn't trust her mom whenever it first started out, but she was hoping that her mom had changed, and then very quickly she started seeing that there was signs of abuse, signs of abuse on all of her children inside of grandma's care. And unfortunately, the kids were left there. They were not removed, and inevitably it led to Boo losing his life on Christmas Eve in December of 2019. And so we're going to dive into this a little bit more as soon as I can get this article to come up. Don't know why it's freezing. Here we are. Here is WMUR. I just know that people in the state of New Hampshire are probably just, elated that he's finally getting justice. So this says a woman has been arrested and is facing several charges in connection to the 2019 death of her 5-year-old grandson. Make it bigger because I do not have my glasses on. Police said a grand jury returned indictments charging Sherry Connor, age 61, with manslaughter, first-degree assault, second-degree assault, and witness tampering. Here's an interview with his mom. Let's see this. Oh. Why is this being like so glitchy today?
Being abused while living with her mother.
Bruises. Every single time I saw them, they were covered in bruises, and they were unexplainable bruises.
In April of last year, Danielle Vaughn told News 9 Investigates her son, Dennis, who she always called Boo, was being abused while living with her mother, Sherry Connor, in Laconia. He was 5 years old on Christmas Eve in 2019 when investigators say he died of blunt force trauma to his head and neck. Danielle told us a Laconia police officer came to her job to tell her.
I'm like, no, is there something wrong with my kids? And I started crying. He's like, please, just come with me for a minute.
On Friday, Connor was arrested on charges of manslaughter, first and second degree assault, and witness tampering after she was indicted by a grand jury. Danielle told News 9 Investigates DCYF removed all 4 of her children from her life in 2016 because of her struggles with drug addiction. They were put in a foster home, and the next year, Danielle says DCYF tried terminating her parental rights, but a judge overruled that and instead, with Danielle's consent, granted guardianship of all of her kids to Connor. Danielle alleges that's when she noticed the abuse starting. Reports also came in from her children's school and neighbors, and she filed a civil lawsuit against DCYF in 2023, accusing them of ignoring those reports.
Here, these people are saying that you're not fit enough to take care of your kids, and we're going to take them from you, but we're going to protect them, and we're going to do what you should have done.
And as for that lawsuit, the state has denied it or its employees failed to properly investigate Boo's death. Belknap Police and the Laconia County attorneys say they will be releasing more information during a news conference on Monday. Live in the studio tonight, Imani Fleming, WMUR News 9.
Finally, right? I know it does. It breaks. It's horrible, Cooter G, to think that somebody could do this to their grandson, right? Hi, Rhonda. So let me pull up Dennis's page. They had this justice for Dennis Vaughn. This is something that we looked at pretty in depth during the trial. We listened to some, I'm sure some of you guys remember the horrible audio that we played of him being abused. He was being abused by his grandma, and she had recorded it. She had accidentally called mom and left her this voicemail of her abusing the children. And so I know that this family is just elated that she is in custody now. This is her. This is Grandma Sherry Connor, who was age 61. She was arrested and indicted on multiple counts by the grand jury yesterday. Hi, Fly Girl. This is one of these cases, guys, that we are probably going to follow this all the way through the trial. And just really follow up with this justice for this family. It's not a case that very many people are talking about. And I think that there needs to be more awareness. There needs to be more people discussing this, because this is in New Hampshire. This is where Harmony Montgomery was also failed. And I really hope that they do a complete and total overhaul of their CPS. I can't remember what their acronym is, but the system completely needs overhauled in New Hampshire and many other states. There are so many states where this exact thing happens, where these people, they go out and they don't actually check on the children. They don't actually investigate what is going on, and these kids unfortunately lose their lives in systems that are meant to be there to protect them. You would think that, once he went into the CPS system, that he should have been safe. He should have been protected. He should have been cared for. He should have been in a home where he was happy and healthy and loved. He escaped this drug situation that was going on in his mom's life. She doesn't try to deny it. She doesn't try to hide behind it, and she got herself clean. She got herself sober. She did the steps, she did the work, and was trying to get her children back. But while she was trying to get her children back and seeing all of these different signs of abuse and different things going on, I mean, look at his face. Even in this photo, you can see like he's got the sunken baggy eyes. He looks like he has different cuts, scrapes, bruises on his face in this picture. And it's just, why were the signs not followed up on? Why did nobody help him inside of this system? I am going to read you guys this post because it does summarize the case pretty well for those of you guys who may not be as familiar with this case. It kind of tells the story as to how he ended up into this system, and then the steps that his mom took to try to help him once he was there. And so it says, at 15, Danielle Vaughn was left in the care of her mother's friend, who was then a 50-year-old man. She was 15, and he was 50. They became romantically involved, and Danielle got pregnant. She was a mother by the time she was 17 to a 50-year-old man, right? They married and eventually had 4 children. Their youngest was named Dennis. Dennis Vaughn Jr. was born in 2014. The fourth of the children. Vaughn has led a life married by abuse. She remembered her mother, Sherry Connor, as an erratic and prone to violent outburst. Like, that's how she remembered her mom. Danielle's husband grew controlling and violent, and both of them started using drugs. Dennis Sr. had been repeatedly arrested for drugs in 2016, and police raided the family's home, arresting Dennis Sr., and Vaughn lost custody of her 4 children. At that point, obviously, that's what should have happened. I'm not saying that we don't want CWS to take children out of homes that are bad for them. Absolutely. If you're doing drugs, if you're in an abusive environment, you should lose custody of your children. My issue is, once you lose custody of your children, they should be going somewhere safer. They shouldn't be in a situation where we could even think that they're going to be abused or murdered or neglected by their people, by their foster home. And that's exactly what happened here. It says that was the beginning of a horrible 4 years, she said, but she was willing to move mountains to get her children back. She kicked the heroin. She went to her appointments. She found stable housing away from Dennis Sr. She worked to piece together a life and prove that she could care for her children. In the summer of 2017, a court granted custody of the 4 children to Vaughn's mother. Sherry Vaughn had reservations about the arrangement after the way that she had grown up. I knew my mom had that mean bone in her body, she said, but she wanted to believe that she could love and care for her grandchildren. Before long, Vaughn said she started noticing that the children had bruises on their wrist or on their ears. One of the children was hospitalized with a concussion. Connor would always have an explanation. Then, during one visit, Vaughn noticed finger-shaped bruises around her children's chins. I knew those bruises. I knew what they were from. Vaughn said her mother used to grab her by the chin, almost lifting her off the floor as she would yell, "Now you look at me." All of the children were too skinny. Vaughn said on a visit to Connor's home for Christmas in 2018, she discovered their deplorable living conditions. Connor's home in Laconia was vile, with human and dog feces on the floor. She kept the refrigerator and the cabinets locked so the children, 4-year-old Dennis and the 3 older children, couldn't get food or drinks themselves. When they got too thirsty, Vaughn said, they drank out of the toilet, and then they were punished for it. They had to use a bucket to go to the bathroom. Like, guys, these kids were growing up in a horrible, horrible situation with this horrible, horrible, disgusting monster of a woman. And yet they were left there. This is what kills me. DCYF. Here it is. That's their acronym. I could not remember it. After that visit, she called DCYF every day. Every day she called. But the divisions screened out her reports, or the cases were closed as unfounded, she said, meaning that the investigation did not turn up abuse or neglect. One day, Vaughn got a voicemail from her mother who seemed to have dialed by mistake. Vaughn could hear a hand smacking flesh, her third oldest child screaming, and her mother screaming back, "I hate you, you dirty dog," she screamed, cursing at the 8-year-old. Vaughn remembered, "I can't wait for someone to take you away." Vaughn made another report. We played that recording, if you guys recall. We played that recording for her. In July of 2019, her mother duct taped that same child to a chair and left him overnight in a campground. Other people in the campground called police. DCYF petitioned a court to remove that child from Connor on an emergency basis and returned him to Vaughn. So now we're in this situation where the mom was given back custody of one of the children because the grandma was abusing him, and yet they left the other 3 children in this home and continued to tell her that she was not fit to get all of her children back. Make that make sense. In July of 2019, she got one of her children back because this abusive monster was causing physical harm to him. But she was not fit to get her other 3 kids back. What? Vaughn said she's still not clear about why they only removed one of the children from Connor's care in the summer, but did not move to get her other 3, including Dennis Jr., out of Connor's home. By this time, Vaughn said she was calling for help multiple times a day. She called the office of the child advocate. She called the the ombudsman's office, every authority she could think of. She was frantic. I was begging them, put them anywhere else but her house. On Christmas Eve of 2019, she went to work early for her cleaning job at Elliott Hospital. She got clean enough that she was working at a hospital, you guys. She was better. There was no reason they did not give her back all of her children. She was there for less than an hour that Tuesday morning when a state police sergeant asked to speak with her. She felt a knot in her stomach as they walked into an empty room. He looks at me and says, "Dennis is dead." 5 years later, Danielle is still trying to get answers about how exactly her son died. May of 2020, an autopsy was performed by the Office of Chief Medical Examiner and said that Dennis died of blunt force trauma to the head and neck and ruled the death a homicide. No one at that point had been charged. No one. Whenever this was written back in July of this last year, no one had been charged at that point for his death. And they had just said that the investigation was still open. Every time that she would reach out to them, that would be their response. And so this is, like I said, we had gone through this case pretty in depth during the trial for Harmony Montgomery, because how DCYF in the same year can fail 2 children so badly is just absolutely mind-blowing to me. Just completely and totally mind-blowing. A life that never should have had to been lost. This child did not deserve what he got, but finally this monster has been arrested and is now going to face the charges for what she's done. He was arrested, Catherine, for drugs back in 2016. So we covered this in February of 2023. Or I'm sorry, February 23rd of 2024. So we were talking about Elijah, Audrey, Darnell, Harmony, and we also talked about Boo. And then we did more videos with that as well, bringing him up from time to time. Yeah, some of the kids had to have been in school unless she was homeschooling. I don't know. How many other kids are like this? That is my question, Seal. How many other children are in situations where things like this are going on day after day after day, and they have somebody who is trying to save them, trying to get them the help that they need, and then it just doesn't ever happen? Just doesn't ever happen. I'm looking for the audio. It's on here somewhere. I might have to Here's an article from the neighbors back in 2023. Nope, this is back from 2019. Let me share this tab instead. We'll take a look at this older article just to make sure that everybody's familiar with the case. So it says that the neighbors who live next door to where the boy's suspicious death is under investigation by authorities said they have been concerned for some time about the activity in the apartment. It's been ongoing and we were all concerned, said Joyce Hendrickson, who lives in apartment 66 in the Wingate Village apartment complex with her grown children, Phil and Brandy. On Tuesday, the state attorney general's office announced it was investigating a suspicious death of a male child. On Friday, the child was identified as 5-year-old Dennis J. Vaughn Jr. by the attorney general's office. Friday's statement said New Hampshire Associate Medical Examiner Christine James had conducted the autopsy of Dennis, but that the cause and manner of his death were pending further investigation. Well, we just heard that it ended up being blunt trauma of the head, neck, and that it was rolled a homicide. Yeah, it's obvious it's way more than we want to mention. It's insane. I know. Yeah, grandmother, Gia. I know. You just can't believe it, right? These are kids that should be safe in these homes. Why? Removed from mom, given to grandma, and murdered by grandma. So Phil Hendrickson said that before the emergency responders arrived at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, the boy's sister was standing outside the apartment talking to 911 on a cell phone. He also saw the grandmother rush outside and heard her say, "He's not breathing." The fire department ambulance arrived and the neighbors said they saw an EMT rush out carrying the boy in his arms and placed him in the ambulance, which then sped away. According to Friday's statement by the Attorney General's office, Dennis was transported to a local hospital where he was pronounced dead. Phil Hendrickson said that he had been concerned about the child next door for about a year. In February, he had noticed one child was outside barefoot in June. When he saw the activity, it concerned him, and he recorded a video and filed a complaint. So more than just mom was calling. More than just mom was calling to try to get this child saved, to get these children saved. Every single one of them inside of this home was abused. So the police chief, Matt, on Thursday deferred all questions related to the case to the Attorney General's office. Joy Hendrickson said that in the 2 years that the children had been living next door, she heard a lot of shouting, banging, and other sounds coming from the apartment, which concerned her. June 22nd, officers were dispatched to deal with the juvenile matter. 2 days later, they returned to assist another agency, according to the log entries. Officers also went there in June of 2026 to attempt to locate someone, according to the log. Police received animal complaints directed at the apartment on August 9th and October 21st. I mean, the police were in and out of this home how many times? It's just absolutely ridiculous. And then, of course, on that Tuesday, Hendrickson said the state police and local police were on scene Tuesday all day until about 11:30 p.m. She said on Wednesday, Christmas Day, the grandmother returned to the apartment briefly and walked out with Christmas presents and the 2 dogs. Can't even. New Hampshire DCYF. It's just disgusting the whole way around. This is an article that they had posted about the director resigned after just 7 months of accepting the position. Makes you wonder why. Why can't they keep somebody in there to
position? The director
keep this going so that it's being cared for. I mean, why can't they get a director to stay in this agency and to get this agency fixed in New Hampshire? What is the issue? Why are children being failed?
of New Hampshire's Division for Children, Youth, and Families also stepping away. Jeff Fleischer started the job just 7 months ago. In a statement, DHHS says it has accepted Fleischer's resignation so he can pursue other interests and to be closer to his family out of state. The agency adds, quote, "We thank Jeff for his service to the children and youth of New Hampshire, and we wish him the best in future endeavors."
Suppose I wouldn't want to stay in a job where children are dying on a regular basis either, to be completely honest. So here's another article about her being charged. We did, Seal. We did watch part of the documentary. So, a woman charged with manslaughter 5 years after the death of 5-year-old in New Hampshire. The death of Dennis Vaughn Jr. Was deemed suspicious at the time. Authorities provided limited information, saying that he was taken from Blueberry Lane home to a hospital where he later died. The New Hampshire State Police said Friday that 61-year-old Sherry Connor had been arrested. Connor was indicted on charges of manslaughter, negligent homicide, as well as 6 counts of first-degree assault, 1 second-degree assault, and 4 counts of witness tampering. Connor will appear in the Belknap County Superior Court at an unspecified date. No further information was immediately available. So once we find out when this unspecified date is, 100% we are following up with this, and we are going to continue to watch this case and figure out what's going on. Yeah, why wait so long for first degree? And here's the thing, it's just negligent homicide and manslaughter. How long? How long can you get for that, I wonder? Let's see, because I'm sure it's probably not very long. So 3.5 to 7 years for the negligent homicide. What's the other one? Manslaughter. Let me look. So 3.5 to 7 years. Hold on, let's keep track. That's homicide. Manslaughter. Oops. Manslaughter. Let's see. Okay, so that one's actually punishable of up to 30 years in prison. So that's great. She just needs to rot there. Honest to goodness. She just needs to rot there. And let me see if I can find a picture of her for you guys to see. 61. I was telling the ladies, look what all that guilt does to your skin. Living with the fact that you killed your own grandbaby for the last 5 years while you walk around out and about. Freaking monster. I'm going to find the audio. First degree assault. So first degree assault, it looks like first degree assault. So for each count of that first degree assault would be up to 15 years. So you're looking at 6 counts of first degree assault. She's done. She's fried. You bet she was an alcoholic, probably. Probably. Yeah, so sick of these children that can abuse children or elderly. It's just disgusting, and it's happening so much. Hi, Red Rock. How are you? I know, what took so long to arrest her? And so this is the problem. So whenever we were covering Harmony Montgomery's case, her case was everywhere, right? YouTube picked it up, and TikTok picked it up, the local news stations picked it up, and they were talking about this everywhere, everywhere. And then here's this mom screaming out on Facebook since 2019, screaming out to the local media since 2019 to please talk about her child who needed justice because nobody said anything. 27 reports. 27 reports to CPS, to DCYF, 27 times people called. Nothing. So this is away from where Adam Montgomery was. This is in Laconia, New Hampshire, which if we look at it, let me see. So it is a different district, it's a different police force and things like that. But why does that matter? You know what I mean? Like why doesn't justice in general happen for everyone the same way? Especially in the same state. New Hampshire. Pull this up so that you guys can see kind of the area. And then I'll pull up Mass and see where Mass is in comparison. Not Mass. Oops. As I share the wrong tab almost. So this is Laconia right here. Right there. And then where Harmony was. Whoa. Yeah, another one that should not have happened. Yeah, that absolutely too laid back. Here's the problem though. So we've talked about this before because there's a line, right? We can only legislate so much. We can only make so many laws because at the same time, we don't want to be in a situation where they just have the ability to just rip and pull kids out of situations and stuff like that because false reports do get made. Does that make sense? You can have somebody who is an amazing mother, who is an amazing father, have somebody get angry with them and try to ruin their life by calling in complaints or try to, use that as a system to be vindictive. And I honestly I think that there needs to be some way, shape, or form to be able to charge the people who make false complaints in a malicious way. Um, with some type of something so that it's not overwhelming the system and people can't do that. But then you run the fine line where, well, what if I just think there's something going on and then it turns out to be unfounded, right? What if the kid next door has bruises all the time and so I call it in and then it ends up being unfounded? Can I get charged for that? Well, then you have to worry about what's the intent of the call. Did I intend to protect the kid? Or was I calling in a false claim because of malicious intent? And that's where the fine line comes in because how can you determine if the child is actually in harm or actually not in harm if it's somebody who's just trying to make somebody's life miserable or if it's somebody who is actually harming their child? And so it sucks because then you get into this slippery slope. But a large part of the problem, and we've talked about this multiple times on this channel, so I know that I'm preaching to the choir in this. A large part of the problem with these cases is the person who's in charge of checking on this child, that DCYF worker that is in charge with going to the home and actually seeing where the child is, that the child's healthy, that the child's okay, that the child's not lying, that they're actually comfortable. The person who is in charge of that worker, typically is seeing 80 to 90 kids a week. These systems are so overwhelmed with calls that they're having to see 80 to 90 kids a week. You take a 40-hour work week and you have to see 80 kids in that 40 hours. 40 divided by 80, you get less than a half hour per child. That includes your drive time from house to house and everything else like that. And so we're seeing these cases where, look, the DCYF worker for Harmony Montgomery said that he's seen her for less than 10 seconds from a car 20 feet away whenever he closed her report. Yeah. Yeah, you can't determine intent. It makes it hard. It makes it so hard. Right. We need a new system with children being the focus period. And there's no follow-up care. That's exactly it. There's no follow-up once that initial 10 seconds is seen. And that's where we are. I believe so. Yes, BC. And so how do you make it work? It's hard. It's just there's no right answer. But what I do know is that this system that we have now, it's all wrong. It's all wrong because we've got kids being pulled from homes that they never should have been pulled from and placed into other homes where they get abused or hurt or murdered. And then we have other kids that are getting sexually abused in foster care or in their adopted homes, or hurt and murdered in foster care or in their adopted homes. We're seeing it on both sides. And so it makes it difficult because how do you save the children? How do you make sure that they're in a loving environment? And this is where I personally believe that follow-up care is the only way to make that a reality. If it's a person who has had multiple calls to CPS, maybe their kids need to be in therapy with a professional that can call and report that if those kids are actually being abused. Maybe there needs to be, a biweekly requirement where, like, okay, hey, now your kid needs to go to therapy, just to make sure, until they're comfortable to get signed off on. I don't know. But then again, with foster care, adoption, things like that, there needs to be follow up. There needs to be some type of system in place, and I don't think that DCYF can be the ones who carry it out. I don't think that police can be the ones to carry out that follow-up care because they're already overwhelmed. And so that's where we have to put it on a third party. We have to put it on doctors or therapists or something that the child is already seeing, these mandated reporters, to make sure that they are being cared for once they're out of these situations. Once Boo was removed from his mom's care and put into this foster care situation, if there was follow-up, that they could have seen that there was actual abuse occurring and not just mom being vindictive towards the grandma. If there was follow-up with these children, a daily check or sorry, a biweekly or monthly check of these children with a trusted professional that they could grow and build a relationship with, would they have been able to tell this therapist or this individual after being comfortable, hey, I'm being abused? Or would there have been, signs that person could have seen to call it in rather than it just being mom over and over and over again? It just needs to happen. Yeah, people adopt and use it as a check, absolutely. But there are also really great people who adopt kids too. I don't think that every single person who adopts is doing it for money. I mean, we have, gosh, I want to say 4, 5 adopted kids in my church. Like, we're not a huge church. And we have some amazing families that have adopted some kids that could have potentially had an extremely hard life, and now they're growing up with happy, loving families instead. And so I can't say that, every foster care parent is a bad person, or every adopted child is going to go in a bad situation, or every child that's returned to their parents is going to end up dead. Right? Because we don't know. You have Classic and Sincere, aka Orrin and Orson West. They were adopted and they were murdered. Ariel Sellers was adopted. Isabella Kalua, some of you know her as, was adopted and then murdered. right? But then we have situations like Oakley Carlson, where she was sent back to her biological family and was murdered. Harmony Montgomery, sent back to her biological family and was murdered. Right? And so it happens on both sides of the coin. And so I don't know, leaving these kids up to this system and putting them in this position where the parents' privacy and the foster parents' privacy and everything else is more important than making sure that this child is okay. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it. And I know that that's something that, people have been trying to make sure that can get legislated and that something can change. I agree, Gia, though. With 27 complaints, they obviously needed to spend more than 10 seconds. I agree. 27 complaints coming from multiple people. I guess I should say that. Coming from multiple people is where the issue really is, because it wasn't just mom calling. If it was just mom calling over and over again, I could see how they could start to be like, oh, is it really? Like, oh, this call again? But it's multiple people calling about different things each time. I mean, they had to remove one of the children from the home because he was duct taped to a freaking chair. He was duct taped to a chair, the 8-year-old, but he was safe to go back to his mom's home. Why wasn't the rest of the children? Why wasn't the rest of the children pulled out of that home immediately after she duct taped one to a chair? Like, this is a complete and utter failure by the DCYF system. This is a complete and utter failure by New Hampshire in this case. All the way around. And the fact that this woman, this monster, was able to walk free for the last 5 years. And now, so this took 5 years just to arrest her. How many years until her family actually sees justice? Until his family actually sees justice? How many years until she actually is in prison? And until that court system is actually finished? Probably 3 years, I want to bet. I'm guessing probably around 2027 this one actually hits trial. And so these kids who are going to have to testify against their grandmother, their flesh and blood, these kids who are going to have to testify against her are going to have to remember their stories until the trial is over. That kills me. There's no protection for the victims in these cases. It's crazy. Yeah, when the target of abuse leaves, another will take the place. You think she moved from the 8-year-old at that point down to Dennis? Down to Boo? It's very possible. No, she's in jail. She's in jail. Oh gosh, Rhonda, could you imagine the outrage if she was out on bond? I don't know. But I'm rejoicing for this family today because they no longer have to wait for her to get arrested. She's no longer walking around pretending that she's some innocent woman. And now they are one step closer to this baby getting justice. One step closer. The school even took pictures, sent emails, called CPS. The police begged them to do something, and their calls were ignored as well, it says. They left them there. CPS never went and checked on my children. They could have saved Boo. Black eye on a 5-year-old. There's a bruise. That's what this one's showing, a bruise on his little ear. says we know there was extensive reports of abuse and neglect to CPS. We know there was only one adult in the home. Boo deserves justice. Bruises all over his face. It's just heartbreaking. It's being really glitchy today, Kim. I don't know, but I wanted to come on because it's finally the waint is over. Well, the first part of the waint, I guess I should say, because now they wait for the court process to start. Now they'll be waiting for that. They'll be, hopefully it goes fast. The press statement said a grand jury indictment returned indictments on Connor for manslaughter, recklessly causing the death of a juvenile, negligent homicide, 6 degrees, first count assault, second degree assault, 4 counts of witness tampering, all felonies. She will be arraigned at court in a later date. Vaughn's death has been a mystery for many years. Connor was the prime suspect since he died while in her care at the apartment. According to the story of the New Hampshire Bulletin last year, several DCYF complaints about the conditions in the home were determined to be unfounded or ignored. The suspect told her during an interview that Vaughn had died of natural causes, even though the cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head and neck as a result of a homicide. Connor called the ruling by the medical examiner BS, according to Timmons' reporting. While the deaths of Harmony Montgomery and Elijah Lewis garnered statewide attention from polls in the press, Vaughn's death was virtually unmentioned, which has puzzled the activists who have been trying to find answers for why the little boy died. Could you imagine watching the media frenzy over Elijah Lewis and then watching the media frenzy over Harmony Montgomery, and then your child still had no justice? I know this mom is probably so relieved. I can just picture her getting this news and just like breaking down and crying because she fought so hard for Dennis's voice to be heard, and it finally is. They're finally heading for justice. I'm just elated for her. So I just wanted to come on and share and bring some attention to this. Like I said, we're gonna follow this through court. We'll keep looking. See, I'll get me some of them documents. You know what I mean? Yeah, it is. It's heartbreaking. Maybe she'll plead out so the children won't have to testify. Maybe. Do you think that's possible? I feel like people with cases like this, they almost always seem like they're the type of person that just want to convince everybody else, like narcissistic, right? They don't want to accept the guilt for their crimes. They don't want to accept that they did something wrong, and they think they're smart enough to get out of their crimes. I mean, she was smart enough to avoid it for the last 5 years. I'm sure she'll try to avoid it longer. Rhonda, I'm so glad to be back. I'm sorry I was gone for so long, guys. These summers, though, these summers with all these children's, it gets intense. We got all the family activities and all the things, and so, I'm glad to be back, though. I want to see if I can find this interview that they talk about. Wonder if did she do like a video interview? Because that would be awesome. We could see. Mhm. Here's this one. They just quote the interview. They don't have a video of the interview. So this one says, no arrest, no comment. The 5-year-old homicide victim, the state's not talking about. And this is from March 3rd of 2023. Judy Anderson had grown impatient by the time she marched into the Laconia mayor's office in October with a photo of 5-year-old Dennis Vaughn Jr. to remind him that the boy's 2019 homicide in his grandmother's apartment remains unsolved. Anderson, a Guilford retiree, thank God for you, Judy Anderson, and what you did for this family, helping to push this case. Anderson, a Guilford retiree who didn't know Dennis Vaughn Jr., said she's done waiting for the authorities to bring charges in the homicide or to put it back in the public eye. What if this was the moment that they actually started investigating? Maybe the mayor was like, hey, what's this about? Like, who's this kid? Like, why is this lady coming in my office and slamming this picture down on my desk? Is this what got the ball rolling for them to finally do something? She's done waiting for authorities to bring charges in the homicide or put it back in the public eye. She's raising money to put the boy's face on a billboard. In just over a week, her GoFundMe page collected $2,000 of her $3,000 goal. I'm like a dog with a bone, said Anderson, who spent her career investigating abuse reports at the Division for Children, Youth, and Families and remembered reading of Dennis's death 3 years ago. It's just in my nature to say something's wrong here. Something is not right. It's been over 2 years since the Attorney General's office asked the public for tips in the case. It appears the police department never mentioned the homicide investigation or sought tips on its Twitter or Facebook feeds. Governor Chris Sununu has not drawn attention to the case as he did to the recent homicide investigation of 3 other New Hampshire children, Harmony Montgomery, Javion Riley, both 7, and Elijah Lewis, 5. So that's kind of a slap in the face for this family who's waiting for this justice for Dennis Vaughn, for these other children to get that shout out, but nothing in his case. He ordered a review of DCYF's handling of the Harmony Montgomery case and issued a report calling for several charges in state law and agency practice. Sorry, not charges, changes. He has not publicly questioned DCYF's handling of the at least 25 reports of suspected physical abuse and neglect of Dennis and his siblings during the 2.5 years that they lived with their grandmother, Sherry Connor. DCYF deemed that those reports were unfounded or made no findings according to the court record. Immediately after Dennis's death, DCYF removed the siblings from the Connor home and told the Circuit Court Family Division that the significant bruising found on Dennis's body was grounds to terminate her guardianship. The court found that the continuation in Connor's home was contrary to the children's welfare because, in part, there was an ongoing investigation as to whether Connor physically abused Dennis Vaughn Jr., a sibling of the children, causing his death, according to the court document. Connor, the agency told the court, was the primary suspect in an investigation of whether she had physically abused the boy, causing his death, according to the court document. Connor told the bulletin that Dennis died of natural causes even after being shown his death certificate, which states he died of blunt force trauma to the head and neck as a result of homicide. Connor agreed to be interviewed via the Facebook Messenger app. That's BS, Connor wrote. Do you honestly believe if he was hurt like that, they wouldn't have arrested me? She said she never assaulted him or his siblings and spoke with investigators only once. Anderson is not alone in questioning whether Dennis's case remains a priority for state and local authorities. Anna Kennard of Concord saw a Justice for Boo sign in Laconia and remembered that she had seen police outside of the apartment complex on her way to work in December of 2019. She learned a child had died under suspicious circumstances and assumed the silence from the authorities meant that an arrest had been made. She searched for information online and was shocked to see the case remains unsolved. Within 3 days, she created a Facebook page to raise awareness about the case. It's something she's done twice before. She used Facebook to publicize for the search of missing 2-year-old Arizona. When the police found him but didn't make an arrest for months, She used the page to drum up publicity outcry until arrests were made, she said. She helped with a similar effort in 2018 to find 13-year-old Wisconsin kidnapping victim who was rescued after nearly 3 months of captivity. That's so scary. Last week, she spent $200 on yard signs and flyers showing Dennis's face and a QR code linked to her Justice to Dennis Boo Vaughn Jr. page. I've heard about these other cases, Eli Lewis and Harmony Montgomery, she said. I've heard a lot about those, but I haven't heard anything about Dennis. They hung the first 30 flyers in Laconia last month on a 17-degree snowy day. Daniel Vaughn has welcomed Anderson's and Kennard's help in pressuring authorities for answers in her son's case. After Dennis's death, she regained custody of her other children from Connor. Her mother checked in frequently with the Attorney General's office and believed that an arrest would come. And then on the 3rd anniversary of her son's unsolved homicide, she stopped waiting for the authorities and she hung Justice for Boo signs around Laconia, some outside the police station. And in December, she and her attorney, Kevin, sued DCYF and several agency workers, alleging they negligently caused Dennis's death and mishandled the reports involving all of her children. Hi, Aries. A lawsuit wasn't Vaughn's first choice, she said, but she had only until December to file one. With no arrest, Vaughn said she feared a lawsuit would be her only means of holding the state accountable. I just want somebody official to say we are working to get justice for Boo. I want somebody to bring his name up, said Vaughn of Manchester. The world has no idea what happened to my son other than my family. I believe he's forgotten. And it goes into the other cases. Let's see here. It's a pretty long article. I'm just going to give this to you guys because I'm not going to read through the whole thing. If you guys want to take a look at this more in depth, it's in the chat here. But it's just, I don't know. It's just devastating. That literally could have been the moment, though, that they finally started to push this, was when this Judy Anderson went in and started asking, like, hey, what about justice for this kid? Like, don't forget about this one. Yeah. Crazy, crazy, crazy. But today is a day to rejoice. I don't want to be, it's upsetting what happened. We can't change what happened, but we can, help support the family and prayers for them throughout this time that they're going to be going through, because yes, the relief of her being arrested, but now they're in this waiting period now. The waiting for it to be over. It's like different forms of grief as they pass. So, but anyways, I'm going to go ahead and jump off of here. I'm probably going to come back in a little while and we'll just kind of chit chat about some other stuffs going on and just have a more laid back stream, just discussing all the things. So I appreciate everybody who came to hear about Boo's case, and I love you guys all. I will see you later. Bye.